Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to come to this class today on boundaries. My name is Jen Roscoe. I'm a counselor with the Montana Public Health Training Center under the Wellness Program. And I want to thank Desiree, first of all, foremost, to begin as the technical behind the scenes internet queen. Thank you, Desiree, for helping today.
You're welcome.
Lovely. All right. Well, there is a lot to get through today. And so I want to jump into it. Today, we're going to move into boundaries and really noticing how we consider how we show up as an employee, how we take care of others, and noticing how our work-life balance, how we prioritize ourselves and what matters to us. Boundaries are a key part of supporting that practice. And so today you're going to learn about emotional intelligence. We're going to go into, different types of boundaries. And then also understanding how your values, your emotions, your words, and your speech can help you or not help you with boundaries. I want to go into a ton of tools and skills that you can just have in your back pocket. And then also invite you to try 8 different things that you can start on today for boundaries in the workplace. And yeah, just noticing that your mindset, most people, they believe that boundaries, that they equal abandonment. And so I want to just move right into inviting you to try a new mindset and how boundaries can really create safety. Okay, so let's begin. This is a video I created on creating boundaries, and it will give a good description of what they are and move into some values as well. Is that coming through, Desiree? It's not.
No.
Hello, my name is Jen
Okay.
Roscoe. I'm a counselor with the Montana Public Health Training
it's
Center
okay.
under the Wellness Program. The different tool is focused on
Pause it. Okay.
It was okay. It was just a little scratchy and a little low.
A little low. Okay, let's turn up the volume and make sure that the tabs are on.
Okay, so we've all been in this position before. We said yes to something where we're really feeling a big no deep inside. This is a trap that we all fall into. Most of us want to make a good impression on our boss, on our coworkers, and on our clients. And so suddenly you may notice, yikes, I have too many lists and too many items on that list. And this can often lead to resentment and actually deep felt anger. So how do we shift this? And how do you move forward in creating a boundary? Boundaries are necessary and they create safety for yourself. They're helpful to your own well-being and they create limits. So just notice, how do you actually feel about boundaries and what is it that you may need to shift in order to do one? Once you acknowledge that it's your right to express your needs, you're ready for the next step. So the next step is checking in with your values and your priorities. Ask yourself whether or not these have shifted over time. It's super helpful to get a hold of a value sheet and just look over all the words and notice, what are like 5 to 6 that really jump out at you? And maybe try to number them from the top one down to number 6. And while you're doing this, notice, is this actually a goal of mine? Or is this something that's like in my bones? Like this is just intrinsic to who I am. And this is really important to me. So notice, what are your values? The super cool thing about understanding what your value system is that we actually usually operate out of our values all the time, unconsciously or consciously. If you ever notice, I'm really triggered by this person or this situation or this thing, notice how it might thread to a value that's really important to you. Once you know what your values are, then you kind of have a little secret superpower where you can choose whether or not to react unconsciously or whether or not you're noticing, ooh, this is actually a value and I have a choice here of how I want to behave in this moment.
So then, why?
Sometimes our values can really inform our boundaries. Let's say, for example, that maybe you're a nurse and one of your top values on the sheet is caregiving. So notice, you're rocking caregiving. You're like, that's your job. You get paid to embody that value. And you may notice that you're also providing a lot of caregiving within the community, maybe with your family and other ways. And you may be starting to get tired and develop compassion fatigue, or just starting to feel resentful that you're really carrying a lot of this weight. So just notice that sometimes our values can really inform a boundary that we need to make with ourselves. And once you notice that, I'm actually like really on the far end of this value and I'm starting to get tired, that's the moment when you can start to kind of tinker with yourself and change your mindset about how you can create a boundary to take care of your mental well-being. So creating boundaries is essential, not only for your well-being, but also for your long-term success within your position and your job. Just notice that if you don't take any steps towards any boundaries, then you'll tend to be run over by other coworkers. It'll build resentment and also anger in the long run. So just notice these are just a couple tools in learning to say no and practicing I statements. We have so many more tips and tools to help you with creating boundaries. So check out our website on the Montana Public Health Training Center under the Wellness Program. Have a great day.
All right. So apologies for the spotty video there. That's really frustrating. You're going to have access to all the videos and tons of resources that you can click into and share with your team on this portal. So at the end of it, you can go back, click on boundaries, or click on the other classes I've taught and check out those PDFs. There's tons of resources. There's TED Talks, there's books, there's podcasts, there's lots of things that you can tune into after this teaching. Okay, but let's go into now tips, boundaries that work. And I'm sure they really became aware of these.
Jen,
Yes.
Jen, you're breaking up. You're breaking up a little bit again.
Okay.
But now you're clear.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you have to take a little bit of a pause and then it comes clear again.
Okay, gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm not sure what to do about that. It's so frustrating. The internet is not cooperating. Okay.
Yeah, that was
all right.
clear.
I'm gonna keep trudging on. If it gets really bad, maybe you can share my, let me know if you want to share my
Okay.
presentation. Okay, sounds good. All right, well, let's move into physical boundaries. These are, we learned about boundaries a lot during COVID, and that creating that physical space at work was something that we really understood and moved into. Communicating and letting people know if you wanted to hug or if you didn't want to touch or if you wanted to just bump our elbows. People learned the boundaries really quickly during that time. Mental boundaries are really moving more into like respecting opinions, noticing that you may not allow others to pressure you into changing, not engaging in discussions or debates that aren't appropriate, or even like determining, or giving yourself permission to not accomplish everything that you want to do on a to-do list all at once. These are kind of our mental boundaries. And even declining to, move into gossip or negative conversations with other people. Emotional boundaries, it's really about being honest with yourself and noticing your feelings. And so noticing if you're feeling guilty or anxiety, and understanding that you're not responsible for managing other people's emotions or fixing their problems. And so, emotional boundaries can be limiting contact with people who may consistently disregard how you feel, or are emotionally draining. And so taking that time to say no and taking care of yourself internally. And so, yeah, just taking that intentional pause every day to notice, how am I showing up today? And being clear about how you want to take care of yourself. These are our emotional boundaries. How am I coming through, Desiree? Okay. Okay. All right, so let's go into types of boundaries. I thought this was so fascinating when I was in grad school, learning about rigid boundaries and porous boundaries, and also healthy boundaries. So yeah, just notice where you might fall in these different spectrums. Rigid boundaries, they really move into avoiding intimacy or closeness with others. And so, folks with rigid boundaries, they tend to have maybe a few close relationships, but they can seem detached or cold. They could struggle to open up to people. They could be extremely private and protective of their information. And so, something probably triggered this. There's probably a reason why there is such a rigid boundaries. And it's tough because sometimes people with really rigid boundaries, they can keep people at such a distance that they struggle with social connection. Porous boundaries are folks that maybe get a little too involved, maybe match themselves a little bit too much with other people, and they can actually become a little bit more dependent with other people, and also wanting to please. This can lead to burnout, and even compassion fatigue. And so struggling to say no to other people's requests or demands, or becoming dependent upon other people's opinions, seeking reassurance from others. So this can be very porous. Those folks that have identified as a people pleaser, which I'm definitely more in that camp. I want to do really well. I want to be a peacekeeper. I want harmony. Folks tend to be a little bit more skip around conflict and not wanting to have that. And so, just notice and pay attention that if you tend to avoid your own expression or your own truth for someone else's comfort. Because when we avoid any external conflict, then we actually tend to create internal conflict within ourselves. It takes far more energy to cover up who you are. And so moving into healthy boundaries is really powerful. And so these are folks that, they know their personal needs. They know how to be assertive. They know how to say no. They value their own opinion, and they're really open to sharing and collaborating, and being punctual even at meetings and respecting other people's time. This is part of having healthy boundaries. Avoiding gossip and just addressing if there's any conflict in a very constructive way, without resorting to like personal attacks or holding grudges. And so, yeah, healthy boundaries are super great to move into and practice. And, this is a skill. A lot of us have not been taught this. And so practicing that is helpful. And I just want to throw out that we just a little bit of positive reinforcement. We often tell people what we don't like. And if you can get into the habit of positive reinforcement, that means you're letting people know when you feel good. You're letting them know that it's encouragement. That for one example is, thanks so much for listening to me. That's a form of positive reinforcement that is helpful for creating boundaries. All right, so hard and soft boundaries. This is another thing to notice about yourself. Those hard boundaries, they're those ones that you're not willing to negotiate. For me, for example, like I will never take a counseling client on a Friday. Fridays are like, that's not a day that I'm willing to do therapy with a client. And so that's a hard boundary for me in the workplace. Soft boundaries, they can be a little bit more pliable. They're more flexy and you're willing to compromise on. And so, for example, you may want to start leaving the office at 4:30 instead of at 5:30 to pick up your kids. And and you may want to work that into making a reality so you can sit down and think about how you can initiate that conversation to move into a boundary that you may want. And so just notice about what are boundaries that are soft for you and what are ones that may feel really hard, like you're not going to bend on that one. Okay, so the cool thing about being human is that we have emotions and we were born with this emotional intelligence. We let people know in different ways how we're feeling and if we have a boundary. And I always get this makes me laugh whenever I see this comic, but it's so true. We can really feel what's going on for others and if they need time or space. And what's interesting is we actually 60 to 70% of how we communicate with others is through this nonverbal communication, through physical, with eye contact, with voice inflection, with the way we hold our body. This is how we communicate. Isn't that amazing? 60 to 70% of our day is through that. And so being able to read others' cues for boundaries is really helpful, but also noticing what your own emotional intelligence is vibing to others. And so our emotions are powerful, they're an ally. We have received so many different clues from other people, but listening to your gut, listening to your emotions, your body will give you the sign that your boundaries have been crossed. And you may experience, like your heart racing, or even just like that gut feeling, essentially. If you experience anxiety in your body, it's because the brain and the body are sensing a threat to your well-being, to your safety, to yourself. And so you may experience, other emotions like guilt or shame or even sadness. These are also indicators that a boundary has been crossed. So tuning into your emotions is really powerful and being aware of what they are. And I always like to throw this slide in because our emotions, they're so powerful when we tune into them and understand where we're at. And you can really trust yourself and trust your gut to be to tune into your own safety, which helps us create more boundaries. Okay. All right, so this is a tool that I'm sure many of you have noticed before and learned about. I statements are so cool that if you can learn to incorporate more I statements, especially as a parent, it's so amazing how much more you can get out of little ones when you use I statements and you teach them language too about how they can ask for what they need. And one of the reasons that people have such a hard time with boundaries is that they don't know what to say. And a lot of people begin with a you statement. And so a you statement is typical, you always, you never. And there often is an ultimatum that happens with this. And this usually ends up not working for creating a boundary. This usually creates defensiveness and no collaboration. And so if you can practice I statements, it's really helpful. And so you can see I have a couple here that you can see. And I always like to throw in the reminder that using gratitude at the beginning of an I statement is pretty powerful. The power of thank you or appreciation before an I statement can really help you in situations. So you can see, yeah, thank you for inviting me. However, I already have plans. Or I appreciate your help. However, my schedule is already full this week. So saying a thank you before you create the boundary after that can help put people at ease. And it also creates more of a approachable manner of people working with people in the workspace. So yeah, just thanking people ahead of time. I appreciate the invitation. However, I'm not available at that time. And another thing to throw in practice is replacing a but with and, or even however. So you can see in the one in the top, I'm honored that you asked me to help. So normally people would say, but I'm unable to add anything else to my workload. If you replace that but with an and, it helps soften the blow of the boundary. And so this is a really easy trick to put into your back pocket of try bringing in and replacing it with but. So just notice if I said, yeah, I'm honored that you asked me to help, but I'm unable to do anything else in my workload. That's not that bad. It doesn't feel like harsh or anything like that. But studies have shown that and replacing but with and can help soften that blow when you create a boundary. And so that it's hard because we say but a lot. It's just like in our culture, it's definitely like everyone says but. I say but all the time. It's in our media, it's in our news, it's in our TV shows. So it's okay if you say but yeah, it's a nice thing to start to practice to see how you can replace a but with and. All right, yeah. So trying out those I statements. I statements, they let people know how you feel. And the cool thing about an I statement is that people can't argue with how you feel. That's your reality. That's true for you. And so beginning an I statement with how you feel and letting them know is helpful. And then adding that second part of what's going on for you today. Okay. Okay, so here's this is something I want to throw out to you to maybe try this week in the workplace. Here's some 8 boundaries to see if you can like give this a shot. First one is setting priorities. And so, for example, in order to set a priority, it's helpful to know what your priorities are, first of all. And this can include, just noticing what's your personal and your professional boundaries, priorities, and then considering, what they might be for your supervisor as well. And so let's see, like an example for both of you to consider maybe it's like customer service and noticing what that might be within your position. It might be important to just boundary in that area and understanding what your priorities are in that area and set the aspects about what you're willing to compromise on with your supervisor. And so just noticing what are your priorities, and this is often linked to your value system. And so being aware of your values is really helpful. So delegating, who do you know that's good at this? People that delegate, they know how to create boundaries as well. They are spreading the workload and just remembering, to delegate tasks when it's appropriate. You may need to have your supervisor's permission, first of all, to do that. And this can really help you focus on your daily tasks and just help like allowing, the operations of the workplace to run smoothly. And so delegating, they can really help you manage a reasonable workload. So just notice like what are some things that you can delegate, that are within your capacity. Noticing and understanding your workload. And so this is another one to just consider. Time, considering time and how long it takes you to complete a task, or even counting all the tasks that you need to complete in a workday. This can help you establish a working pace. This can help you set up your expectations with the role. And so noticing and understanding all of those aspects can help you be more productive throughout the workday as well. Taking time off. All right, this is a good one. And it's important because some of us, we don't take time off. We just don't take that time to relax. And if you don't do that, then your well is not filled back up. So even if it's like figuring out some self-care that are shorter, but more often, noticing that if you actually ever feel really sick, it's important to just stay home, recuperate, recover, and take that time off so you have that extra well filled back up to spread all the work you're doing around.
Jen,
Okay. Desiree, yeah.
I have a couple of questions in the chat, one of which
Oh,
is,
okay.
do people have one of these boundaries all of the time? Or is it normal to have it with different scenarios? So that was a few slides back.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, will you repeat that? It was a little staticky when you came through.
Mhm.
Do people have one of these boundaries at the time, or is it normal to have them with different scenarios? Is that what I'm
Yes.
hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so that's such a great question. Do people have one of these boundaries all of the time, or is it normal to have them in different scenarios? Yeah, what do you think? What do people notice about this question? Boundaries are, I think, definitely something that happen spontaneously within your own internal body. So noticing, like, if you're in a situation, you have the indication within your emotional response to something that this might be a boundary for you. One example is if someone is asking you to stay after and do extra work, and you're noticing in your system, no, a big no within your body. Hey, that in that moment is a moment to create a boundary. And you can always start with a thank you and gratitude and saying, yeah, thanks so much for thinking of me with that. I'm noticing that I don't have the capacity for that today to stay after and work a little bit longer. Let me know how I can tune in with this week for that to help. And so using gratitude and also noticing when you feel a big no in your body, that's a really awesome internal clue that you might be needing to make a boundary in that moment. I'm not sure if I'm answering that correctly. Let me know if that's kind of what you were going at. Because yeah, the scenarios are different. Go ahead, Desiree.
There's another question. Are you able to set boundaries with yourself?
Oh, I love that question. Yeah, that's another part of this training. Right now, I'm kind of focused on external and dealing with people outside of ourselves and kind of specific to workplace situations. But yeah, boundaries with ourselves. I mean, that is next level. I think that's definitely something we can talk about a little bit more as we move along in this presentation. So I'm gonna check that in to bring that up. Yes, Desiree?
One more. How do you guard against becoming too isolated because of your boundaries?
Love that question. Yeah, so that kind of goes back to those porous boundaries and the rigid boundaries that I was talking about earlier. Yeah, and this happens really easily, doesn't it? When we become isolated, we tend to be on guard. And one thing, there's a couple things I want to put in here. One is noticing your thought forms. So when we have really strong, rigid boundaries, we tend to be thinking thoughts that are guarded, and you're trying to keep yourself safe, right? And so noticing, are there any of those thoughts that you could pivot just a little bit? Are there any of those thoughts about being so guarded that you could soften, even if it's just a little bit of a tweak? We can't usually jump across a big, huge river and make a huge change. Change happens very softly and slowly. It's like climbing a ladder, just a little bit at a time. And so if you notice that there's a thought that you've been repeating that really is a guarded thought that may not serve you, how can you just tweak it a little bit in the sense that you might feel a little bit less guarded and a little bit more open, a little bit more curious, a little bit more move you into wondering or even just noticing, how can I feel a little bit better in the situation? Because we're social creatures. We want to connect with others. We're human. So that's part of being human, is having connections. And so any way that you can notice your thoughts and just kind of soften them a little bit. And if you want to help someone with this too, this can be an open-ended question. You could move into them. So open-ended questions are what, who, and how, and then keeping your mouth shut. So just allowing them to answer. So asking an open-ended question about, oh yeah, I see that that's been really hard for you. How can you shift yourself and feel a little bit better in that situation? The cool thing about this is when we do these open-ended questions and helping others who are maybe a little bit more isolated, we give them the power to figure out how they want to shift. We often want to tell people this is what you need to do. It's so fun to give advice and should people and tell them what to do. But if you can ask people with an open-ended question, how can you feel better in this moment? They usually can come up with it, and then they actually usually do it because it's their own idea. So I hope I kind of digressed a little bit into working with others who are a little bit more isolated as well. But yeah, one way is to just notice your thought patterns and take a chance in shifting just a little bit. Okay, where was I? Is there any other chats I should check in about, Desiree? These are great questions. Thank you so much for asking. Okay, so I think I was on communication, which, hey, I just did. We just went into that. Strong communication is so powerful, and they can really help you solve the issues that are within yourself with other people, and having those skills of I statements, open-ended questions, and also trying to avoid those you statements, because that always puts people on defensiveness. They just put up a wall when you use a you statement. So communicating often, asking for advice, and who do you know that does this? There's always someone that is modeling this in the workplace where they may not have the experience with something, but they know how to ask for help. They know how to find out who can help me with this. People love to be asked for advice. They love it. Also setting limits. And so this is something about the question earlier, like how can you set boundaries with yourself? Oh yeah, I highly recommend it. And this is one way, is noticing your workload, noticing your hours, noticing your priorities. Where do you need to set limits for yourself? And then setting those limits in order to help you feel like you can succeed and just feel a little bit better. All right. And then this last one is just like figuring out your schedule. It's so helpful to be organized. And you may have a boundary to set with yourself where you're the only one available. It's all on you. And so maybe creating that boundary that you're only going to check email during work hours. That might be a boundary to practice, a baby boundary just to begin with. And letting people know I don't check email on the weekend. And this allows you to focus on other tasks. This allows you to be present when you're not at work as well. Okay, anything in the chat I don't see? Okay, are there any questions about this slide or anything else within trying these out at work? Okay. Hey, and just notice, what are ones you're doing already? Are there things here that you're like, hey, I'm good at that. I'm already doing that. I'm delegating tasks. I'm taking time off. I'm communicating. I'm setting some limits and I'm figuring out a schedule for myself. If you're doing this, like give yourself a pat on the back. We often notice the things that we're not doing. And so figuring out ways that you can give yourself just a little kudos, a little like high five. Give yourself credit here for noticing what you're already doing. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Okay, so yeah, boundaries, they help us understand our worth. And, and they also help us take responsibility. No one else is going to do this for you. And so this is a part of becoming an adult and just growing up, is that we notice, yeah, no one else is going to pay our bills and do our job for us. And you are the ones taking responsibility for your own feelings, for your own actions, and for communicating. And so this moves us really into self-responsibility. And I tell you what, this is power. This is power. When you move into noticing that you're the only one to take responsibility for what is going on in your life, it moves us out of blame. It moves us out of pointing to finger to everyone else. And because when we do that, we give up our own power. When we move into use statements, like I talked about earlier, blaming others, you make me so mad. Or even if we move into thinking and communicating, and I've done this many times. If you really knew me, you'd know that this is important to me. Well, people cannot read our minds. People may not know. And so this is part of our own responsibility to communicate what our boundaries are and notice what's important. And so the cool thing about boundaries is they really move us into the self-discovery part. It moves us into empowerment within ourselves, because we're kind of like, we're building this courage muscle, this confidence muscle. Like I said at the beginning, a lot of people associate boundaries with abandonment. And so it's moving into a different mindset within yourself, because we may not like behavior or choices that another person is doing or another organization, and just noticing for yourself what a hard boundary is versus a soft one. That, it's not about getting other people to change. This is about you changing. This is about you telling someone, it's not about telling someone else to change. It's about you creating what feels good for you. And most people think it's about manhandling someone into doing something that you want them to do. And boundaries, they're not about, they're really more about self-care. You're getting clear about what works for you, and you're giving yourself permission to put yourself first. Let's check the time. I get a little fired up with this one, as you can tell, because I think it's just such a powerful thing that we can move into ourselves. All right. So let's just talk about real quick, like the benefits of boundaries are so big. They move us into so many different things. The main thing is stress reduction. Oh my gosh, when you set limits for yourself on the amount of work you do, on the type of tasks you do, on the hours you take on, you get to move away from feeling overloaded. You get to move away from not feeling overwhelmed, and this increases productivity. It helps us feel respected and professional. So clearly communicating whatever your work boundaries are. This encourages our colleagues to treat us with respect, because people can feel what they can get away with others. And if you are shifting yourself internally and creating some limits within your work-life balance for work and personal life, you can really avoid burnout. You can like really boost your mental well-being if you're working on your boundaries. And this helps us with personal growth. I mean, this helps us with our mental health. And I love that more organizations are really getting on the bandwagon with this. Boundaries are becoming more essential for our mental and emotional health. And if we don't do it, we're going to experience that burnout a lot faster. So yeah, setting boundaries, it can help us with your conflict management as well, because if you set the boundary first, then it can help prevent conflict. It can help prevent misunderstandings. When everyone's really clear about each other's boundaries, then it's a lot easier to collaborate more efficiently. Yeah, and this really helps us with our job satisfaction. Okay.
Jen,
Yes.
what do you do if you think you have a reasonable workload, but your organization does not think the same way?
Right? Yeah, that is so common. That is so common. And I would say that that's maybe across the board for all jobs, especially if you're in public health. You're doing way more than expected. Your workload is intense. The backpack of what you're carrying is too much. And so one thing I really like to share is figuring out how you can create self-care for yourself within your day. If you know, oh my gosh, I have to meet this client and I have to drive over here. Let's say you're in case management and you have so much to get done in the day, and then you have to write all your case notes and the workload, like sprinkling in little things that can help your self-care throughout your day can help soften your burnout a lot faster. And so we can't do it all in a day, right? We can't do everything that's expected within an organization. And the organization just may never change. And this helps us understand another key concept, that noticing what you can control and what you can't control. And so what we can't control is the organization. Anything outside of yourself, we don't have control over it. And if you think about it, it's like nearly everything. We live in Montana, so the weather, traffic, politics, your mother-in-law, I mean, your kids, it's on and on and on. We don't have control of things that are outside of ourselves. However, the thing we do have control over is how we react, how we respond internally. And this is really powerful, that even if you have a workload that is insane, you still get the choice to how you want to feel about it and how you can move through your day and how you can soften your anxiety. And so tuning into your own internal landscape is a really powerful tool for that. Because yeah, a lot of us, you can see at the bottom, I have most folks wait for the crisis to change. They're overloaded, they're burning out, compassion fatigue, secondary trauma, they're just exhausted. And then that's when they change, because it's just become too much. So if you start doing these little things now and rock your own foundation, then yeah, then it's so much more helpful before life rocks you. I hope that was helpful. All right, anything else in the chat? Okay. Let's see. Okay, well, let's keep moving. Again, I apologize for the internet. I know it's super annoying when the internet is not cooperating. So let's move on to the next slide. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now I want to move into, oh yeah, Desiree, I saw your hand.
I was jazz handing the empty slide. Sorry.
Jazz hands. That's great. Okay, so now we're going to move into the rejuvenation part of what's going on today within boundaries. And, sometimes when we talk about boundaries, I noticed as a counselor, this can be really activating for people. This can be really hard I'm just going to let this load for a second.
Hello and welcome.
It's super activating usually when we learn about boundaries because we notice maybe where we have fallen short, possibly where we're not doing it at all. And so I wanted to do our rejuvenation focused on loving kindness and giving yourself that loving kindness, and also noticing who else has given you this loving kindness in yourself. And so this is mindfulness really focused in on softening. If I activated anything for you today and you're feeling a little stressed, I'm hoping that this rejuvenation will be softening. Okay, Desiree, this may not work. And so I'm wondering if it doesn't work, if I can send it to you and you can maybe share it. So let's see, because the internet is not cooperating. All right, let's see how it goes. Oh, well, that was weird. Just jumped right out of there. Okay, we'll try it one more time. Yeah.
Hello and welcome. My name is Jen Roscoe. I'm a counselor with the Montana Public Health Training
Oh, it's just not working.
Center under the Wellness Program. This video is designed as a visualization and mindfulness, specifically focused on today, loving kindness.
Okay.
Mindfulness is just
All right. Well, I'm just going to make the call that this one is not working. The internet doesn't want to support any YouTube videos today. So I'm gonna lead this right here, right now with you all live. Does that sound okay, Desiree? Yay. Okay, so I'm gonna just close this puppy out and pause it here so if anyone gets on, they know what's happening. All right.
hello and welcome.
Hello and welcome. I just don't want you to stare at my face. Let's go back one. Okay. All right, here we go. So I'm going to invite you now to just get comfortable wherever you are. You can close out your screen. You can close your eyes. You can hold a soft gaze. You can just settle into the space that you are. And for some of you, this may seem really weird, but we know that when we move into just taking some intentional breathing and focusing and shifting our brain patterns into a different part of our brain, this helps soften compassion fatigue. It helps soften stress. And so that's the intention with this rejuvenation piece. So let's just begin by taking a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And again, another deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you're letting that air out, I'm just going to invite you to just allow your shoulders to drop. Allow yourself to just settle into the space you are. And just allowing your feet to make a connection with the ground or the floor. And noticing how that lower part of your body may be connected to the floor, allowing the floor to rise up and meet your feet. So you're feeling grounded, you're feeling safe, you're feeling secure. And just allowing your breathing to become regulated. And so I'm going to invite you to think of a time that you were feeling love from someone else. I want you to think of that person or that situation. Think about who they are and how they're being present with you. Noticing how that person is loving you, is seeing you in this love and light. Noticing how you're feeling validated. Noticing how you're feeling heard. Noticing how you're just feeling safe and secure. And just noticing that this other person is giving you love and softening anything that you may be going through. So, noticing that person and the love that's coming your direction. Now, I want you to think of a time that you've given love to someone else, that you've been very present, that you've listened to what's going on for them, that you've noticed different ways that you were really listening, both with your eyes, noticing that you have open heart, noticing that you're eager just to listen and not solve the problem. You're just being very present and loving with this other person or this other thing. And it might even be an animal. It doesn't have to be a person. Whoever you've really been present with before, tune into that memory. And I want you to find the emotion within your body. Notice where that feeling of acceptance is. Notice maybe where that feeling of compassion. Notice where the feeling of empathy and softness is within your body. And I'm going to invite you to just allow that love, that compassion, that empathy, that feeling that not only has been given to you, but that you have given to others. And I want to invite you to just allow that feeling to fill up your chest, to move up into your head, down your shoulders, down to the bottoms of your fingers. Allow this emotion to move down your back and spine, moving down both legs, and just radiating even out from your toes. And just notice that you're feeling this feeling of love and kindness, not only for others, but also for yourself. And allowing that loving kindness to just radiate now to yourself, noticing that you too can give this loving kindness not only to others, but you can extend this to yourself. And that you can give yourself a little grace. You can allow that love, that softness, that feeling of calm and peace to just radiate within yourself, knowing that if you give this to yourself, that it's so much easier to give it to others as well. It's so much easier to have that mindset of others in the world. And so just allowing yourself to soften and rest into that feeling. And so I'm just going to invite you to bring this feeling back into your day today of loving kindness. I want to invite you to see yourself move through your day, through your relationships, through your work day, when you're in traffic, when you're at home. Allow this feeling to move with you through your day. So setting an intention right here in this moment while you're feeling this emotion, noticing where it lives in your body, and bring it back with you. And so we're going to move back slowly. So just allowing maybe your head to roll, maybe to stretch, allowing yourself to maybe take a deep breath in, maybe even allowing your arms to move above your head. And we're going to come back slowly in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back. If you fell asleep, that's okay. That means you're very regulated and your body is so calm. I love it when people fall asleep. Thank you so much for being curious and doing something different and interesting. Just noticing if there's anything in the chat. I see Desiree is thanking everyone for coming and staying, even though the internet is not cooperating today. Yes, please fill out the evaluation. Always love getting feedback, finding out what works and what doesn't work, and you also get to download that certificate of attendance. But just taking a moment to notice, like, what do you notice from this today? What is something that you can put in your back pocket? Could it have been anything about boundaries, specific with emotions or speech, or any tool, anything that you might try? Noticing the benefits of this. What are things that people, and you can just throw it in the chat. And happy to hear what is something that is helpful today. Let's see. Yeah. Desiree, how are we doing? Anything there in the chat?
There is all kinds of stuff in the chat. Great stuff. Thank you. Thank you. So helpful. I loved this. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful session. Thank you. And thank you for what sounds like a lot of resources we can find via the U of M site. Thanks, Jen. Your presentations are always good. The struggle is real. And would you be able to
Yeah.
send a link to your videos to view later?
Oh, awesome. Yeah, struggle is real. And I appreciate all the gratitude. Beautiful. Yeah, I just have to say thank you too for taking the time for yourself, because this is a form of this. I mean, like, this is professional development as well. But this is also taking time to learn. And here's some more resources. I love these books for learning more about boundaries. The green one on your right is, it's a small book, so it's something you can keep in your back pocket, and it's kind of funny. So that's a nice one to practice and read into a little bit. Nancy Levine has a great podcast, and she is in the link. All these resources are in the portal. Oh my gosh, the portal is amazing. Go to the portal where you came in to this session. You can find past classes and resources. And I put tons of links to other trainings, other people, podcasts, YouTube, TED Talks, books. The list is endless. So yeah, check out these books if you want to learn more. And good luck with it. It's learning about boundaries is a lifelong learning. And yeah, thank you so much for coming. Let's see if I got one more slide here. I think it's a thank you. Thank you. All right. Anything else in the chat, Desiree?
Just fatigue when keeping boundaries. That's how the struggle is real.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a skill that we haven't been taught in a lot of our family systems. And it's not something as much that is within the realm of our relationships that is modeled. So if you're the first person, like, within your system to try some of these new concepts, I just notice you may get a little pushback. So start soft, start small. Don't jump into your biggest boundary you want to make tomorrow and quit your job and do all the things. Start little, and then you can kind of build up that muscle and move towards the things that are a little bit harder. So I hope that was helpful. I'm going to stop share and just hang out in case there's anyone else that wants to ask me questions or is curious about anything. Thank you again for coming to this session. Again, I apologize for the internet. It's so annoying when that happens. Thank you, everyone.